What's up, everyone? Welcome to the video. NASCAR continues their West Coast swing here as we take on Phoenix. The United Rentals, Work United, something like that, 500 at Phoenix Raceway on Sunday, March 12th, around 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Our first short flat track of the year, which, as you guys may know, might not be the most exciting race in the world, but I tend to like it for DFS purposes because it can tend to be a little bit more projectable. And last week was great. Las Vegas, we had not a lot of crashes, nothing like Auto Club. It was actually pretty easy to project that race out, so I was very thankful for that. And I'm hoping for another week like this once again. But anyway, if this is your first time here, what's up? My name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. You can also find me live on Sunday mornings, usually around 11 a.m. Eastern, which is the plan for this weekend. Just a fun time to come in, hang out, ask all the questions you want. Just a good time before the race starts, so I highly recommend being there. And if you do end up enjoying today's free content, the only thing I ask in return, if you can leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and feel free to leave a comment down below, being nice, being mean. I don't really care either way, but I'd love to hear from you. And really quick, I do have to mention the sponsors of the show, Prize Picks and Underdog, because this video is free and they make that possible. But as of right now, if you're a new user over on either site, promo code CPEN will get you an instant deposit match bonus up to $100. And I personally play there myself. I'm not just shilling it out to you guys. I love both sites because I can't bet in Florida and I want to bet on NASCAR. So it's kind of DFS and prop betting mixed together. It's really fun to play on. And if you are like me and not in a legal state, this is kind of your workaway around it to be able to have some fun and dip your toes kind of into the betting markets, but not quite. So I highly recommend checking it out. It's in the link down below in the description or the pinned comment, or head over to PrizePicks or Underdog.com and be on your way to having some fun. All right, so getting to the strategy portion of this video, I don't think it's going to be anything too out of the ordinary this week. There is more laps than we had last weekend, but honestly, the builds should be somewhat similar. I recorded this right before qualifying. I will record the rest after, but we already saw practice, so we kind of know who the fast cars are going to be. The one thing I will mention is that we do have a new aero package this weekend. They did lower the downforce on these cars because, let's be honest, the racing at the short flats last year wasn't all that great. I like them for DFS because it's kind of easy to project, but the racing, I guess, was not that fun to watch on TV because it was pretty hard to pass a leader. And if you guys watched the first Martinsville race, it was kind of a bit of a snoozer with guys like Byron and Chase Elliott up front. So they're lowering the downforce on the cars. Could be anywhere from like 15%, maybe more. And it should make it harder to drive, and the hope is easier to pass. We'll see how that plays out during the race. They might miss, they might hit on the new setup, we'll see. But it will be interesting to see how that plays out. But really, for the most part, we want at least 2 dominators per lineup because we have over 300 laps this week, and that's a good chunk of dominator points. So we want to make sure we get a couple of doms mixed in. And if we can fit in a third cheaper dom, I am perfectly fine with that. But at the very least, we're going to need at least 2 DOMs per lineup. And if you're looking for the tracks to compare to Phoenix, I think Richmond, New Hampshire, and Gateway are probably your best bets. And then you can throw the other short flat tracks in there as well. Martinsville, although I wouldn't say it's the greatest comparison, but it is available to us if you do want to use that in the data set. And you could maybe throw in Gateway. I didn't personally in my data set, but it is a bit of a flatter track, but it's nearly an intermediate over like right around 1.3 miles per length with also a concrete surface. So I think some people might throw that in there, but I'm not going to personally do it. But really, we're just looking at the short flats: Phoenix, Richmond, New Hampshire, Gateway, if I didn't mention that already. You can kind of throw in Martinsville, although it's a bit of a unique track, but you think you guys get the gist. And one more thing I will say is be careful chasing place differential. I know the package is not the same from last year, but a lot of times at the shorter tracks, we saw guys with place differential that just didn't really carry much speed, and they just didn't really move during the race. So be careful chasing place differential this week. I know place differential has been pretty big so far in the first 3 races of the season, the way qualifying has shaken down. We've been at tracks where it's easier to pass. Might not really see that be the case here at Phoenix. A lot of the fast cars might just start close to the front, and they might just finish there as well. So this could be a finishing position and dominator kind of race. And finally, moving on to the driver by driver breakdown portion here, I do have to mention a couple of things first. So first off, if you want to join the best NASCAR DFS community out there, we got a couple hundred people and well over a couple hundred people over in the Discord. Links down below in the description or the pinned comment. For that, I have projections for all sites: DraftKings, FanDuel, Optimizer, ownership projections, my simulation scores, which is the #1 thing I look at each and every single week. Like, it's got everything I want on there in one spot: ownership projections, leverage scores, optimal percentages, top dom tool, top win percentage, which you can use in the betting markets, and a bunch more. Everything's on there, and I have a lot more stuff as well, including the article that I do each and every single week on the data you need. That's color coded nice and neat, so it's really easy to follow. So if you want to check that out, links down below in the description or the pinned comment for that. And the Discord is awesome. We are in there 24/7. I'm not exaggerating. throughout the entire day. All right, so let's get into it. Qualifying just ended a few moments ago for me, so I uploaded everything, and we're going to go through this together for the first time, just my first reactions to the entire slate here. With the more up-to-date thoughts, we can find that over on the Patreon. Now, these are the odds that got updated after practice on Friday night. I think they'll adjust a little bit. We might see Kyle Larson go down to 450, 400. We will see. He opened up at 900, and if you got in on that after you saw practice, well, congratulations to you, because that was a fantastic bet, because the odds have definitely moved in your favor here. But let's start up top with the man Kyle Larson, $11,100 on DK, $13K over on FanDuel. He's on the poll. It should be no surprise to anyone that paid attention on Friday's practice session, because he was first in just about every, not even just about, just every single category here, pulling up the practice data. First in the 1 lap, first in the 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. He's good in the short run. He's good in the medium run. He's good in the long run. His tire fall off wasn't that bad either. I have a hard time not liking Kyle Larson this weekend. The car just looks fantastic. He was really fast last week. He was fast at Auto Club. He's been fast every single week. Hard not to like him here. And the data sample that we're looking at for this recent track history, this is not Phoenix in specific. We're looking at Phoenix from last season, New Hampshire, Richmond, and also Gateway, which does equate to a 6-race sample size. I did not throw Martinsville in the recent track history just because it's a bit unique, although I did throw it in here for the similar track history, but that's really the only difference, just looking at short flat tracks in general. Now, really, I don't usually love playing Kyle Larson at these shorter flat tracks. He has had some decent finishes at Phoenix before. He also won this race in the 2021 season for the championship race at the end of the year. So he has had success here, so I'm not overly concerned about that. And I just love what I've seen from him this week. There is really nothing telling me that he's not going to stay up front, dominate. He's got the best pit stall. He's got a great pit crew. I mean, all signs point to Kyle Larson dominating here. So yes, while I know it's kind of scary to roster the driver on the pole, we've seen in the past short flat tracks, you're able to stay up front for the most part. Now, we do have a different aero package this weekend, so maybe they can pass a little bit easier. And he's got some pretty good cars behind him, like Denny Hamlin, William Byron, Christopher Bell, Brad Keselowski, but I do think Kyle Larson's in the best spot here to dominate early on. So if I'm playing cash games, I'm playing Kyle Larson. And honestly, in tournaments, I'll probably still be overweight on Larson, because it's hard to argue against his car this weekend. It looks bad fast. Joey Logano, $10,800, the most expensive over on FanDuel. He did open up with Ryan Blaney as the best odds to win this race. Obviously wasn't as impressive as Larson in practice or qualifying, so he got jumped by Larson there, but I still think he's a fine play. It wasn't like he was terrible in practice. 4th in the 1 lap, 3rd in the 5 and 10, but 17th in the 15th. Do I think he's going to be borderline top 20 car? No, but that was a little bit concerning, because you also saw his teammate Ryan Blaney fall off a bit as well. Very fast in the short run, but 11th, the 15th, and 8th in the 20th. So it's a little bit concerning for me, but his starting spot does kind of make up for that. We don't necessarily need him to dominate early on. He can make up for that. We know how good Joey Logano is at these track types. Pretty much the best driver at them last season, the second most DraftKings points per race, the best average running position, the best driver rating, had the most wins, 76.8 laps led per race, which was the most, and he also is the most recent winner here at Phoenix, winning it at the championship race. So starting in 16th, I do like him. My only concern is he's pretty expensive, and it's not like he's starting in the 30s. He's starting 16th, so let's say he's like a borderline top 5, top 8 car. That's okay. You're still getting positive place differential, but we need lap leaders. Like, this is one of those tracks where we have over 300 laps, and a guy like Denny Hamlin, if he can lead 100 laps in this race and finish 5th, I would rather have Denny Hamlin rather than Joey Logano if he gains 10 spots, if you know what I mean. I'd rather have Kyle Larson if he can lead 100 plus laps. Those lap lead points are going to add up quick, and also fast laps as well. So you got to be careful with Joey Logano. I think a lot of people will play him just because he's the most recent winner here, and short flat tracks models will love him because of that. But I do think you have to be careful, and if he's going to be pretty chalky, it might be decent to be underweight there if you don't think he's going to dominate. I think he's going to have a fine race, but I'm not sure it's going to be as good as some of these other drivers that get up front and dominate as well. If he does, it'll probably be more so of a late stage 2 or stage 3 kind of thing. Kyle Busch, $10,600. He is starting in 9th. I know he had a really hot start to the season after being great at Daytona. Yes, he wrecked, great at the Clash, won at Auto Club. But he was pretty bad in practice last week, wasn't that great during the race, and we're seeing once again where he was not good in practice, and I have concerns that that might translate to the race once again. I mean, we're talking like a borderline top 30 car in practice. Do I think he's going to be that bad during the race? No, but do I think he's as fast as some of these other guys that get up front and dominate? From what I've seen so far this weekend, I don't really think that's going to be the case. So Kyle Busch is pretty expensive here. I know Phoenix used to be a great track for him. I do think the lower downforce will help him, but I'm not sure I want to go that route with Kyle Busch this week. I think I'd rather play guys like William Byron, Denny Hamlin that are a bit cheaper, and I think have a better chance to get up front and showed me more in practice. Even guys like Reddick, Truex, even Harvick, Christopher Bell. It's mainly just a price point thing here for Kyle Busch, and I think he might just go a bit overowned because of the name and since he's been really good so far to start this season. So it's mainly just an ownership thing here for me for Busch, and I don't think he's going to grade out as well as some of the others, especially from what we saw in practice. Then we have Ryan Blaney, $10,300. He's starting in 8th. Pretty similar play to Joey Logano. Just doesn't offer as much place differential upside. And like his teammate, they were very fast in the short run. But then you saw 11th in the 5 lap, 11th in the 15th lap, and 8th in the 20, which is concerning. But again, we're talking about pretty much the 2 best drivers at short flat tracks over the past couple of seasons. And even last year, looking at this data set, the most DraftKings points per race, the best average finish, 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and the most fast laps by a decent margin. So I think Blaney should be on your tournament radar, but I am just a little concerned that they're not going to have the long run cars to compete with some of these other guys that show better speed in practice. Ross Chastain, $10,000. He's starting in 6th. He's just kind of in a weird spot, similar to Kyle Busch, where I think they're pretty similar plays because I don't think they're going to run as bad as they did in practice, but I'm also not really thinking they're going to be cars that can dominate and get up front. Is it possible? Sure. I mean, Ross and Kyle Busch are some of the best drivers in the field, but these practice times are a lot to be desired, so I'll be pretty careful on my Ross Chastain exposure. Dropping down to this 9K range, we have lots of good plays here, and William Byron's going to start us off. Last week's hero, scoring over 100 fantasy points, just absolutely killed it. It was really cheap last week. His price got bumped up, but I think that's fair. $900 on DraftKings, though. $95 on FanDuel. I think he is way too cheap over there. I'm probably going to have a decent chunk of exposure of William Byron over on FanDuel. Still fine tournament play on DraftKings, but just the pricing makes a lot more sense over on FanDuel. And while he wasn't super fast in the short run in practice, did get better as the long run went, really only behind his teammate Kyle Larson, which Hendrick should bring speed once again. They definitely look like they got some really fast cars to start the season. In short flat tracks, they're fine for Byron. I wouldn't say they're like his absolute bread and butter, but he's had success at them, finishing in the top 20 each and every single one last year. He's also able to put up some dominator points. I know he absolutely killed Martinsville, which isn't even in this data set, and he still has some of the most laps led per race, and even if you add Martinsville in, that's when it starts to get really beefy. But I do think Byron's a fine tournament play. I don't think a lot of people will roster him and Larson together, starting 1-3, but I think it's a fine way to go in tournaments. Then we have our first Toyota, Denny Hamlin, $9,600 on DK. He's starting in 2nd. Almost got the pull from Kyle Larson, which I'm glad he didn't because it would have made it a little confusing because I wanted to play Kyle Larson all along. But if Denny Hamlin was on the pool, it's like, well, I kind of have to play some now, which I'm talking like in the cash game sense. In tournaments, I was playing Denny Hamlin no matter what. I actually think he's a pretty decent play here. Great at the short flat tracks, won at 1 last year. And looking at practice, again, wasn't great in the short run. And we didn't get a ton of data from him because he didn't get anything past 15. But I don't think Hamlin's a terrible play. 14th in the 5, 8th in the 10. I'm just going to assume he had a lap that screwed him up here where he was 20th. But I think Denny Hamlin's going to be fine. I'll play him in tournaments. I think the price point's good. And Toyota, I think, will have a little bit of speed this week. I think his teammate Christopher Bell is going to be pretty good. Tyler Reddick didn't look too bad. I don't think Bud Wallace will suck either. Martin Truex was the one guy that just didn't show me a ton. But he was still 14th in the 5 and then 9th in the 20, which not as many drivers ran 20. But I don't think Toyota's going to be too bad here, and some of their price points are pretty good. So Hamlin's a fine tournament play. Tyler Reddick, while he's not quite on JGR, he basically is in that 45 car. He's $9,400. Really cheap on FanDuel. Love him over there. Just I don't really get the price point, but he's starting in 12th. And while he was not fast in the short run, long run was pretty good for Tyler Reddick, and his fall off was also really good as well. 10th in the 10 lap, and then 4th, and 3rd and 2nd as the 15 and 30 lap runs were added in. So I think Reddick's a pretty good tournament play here. I don't think a lot of people are going to go that route at that price point and for where he's starting. So I do like him as a pivot in tournaments. And there's been a theory where some of these dirt guys could benefit, or guys that can ride close to the wall could benefit with the cars being looser. So I think Reddick is in line for a decent day here, and I think the speed in the long run should show up. Martin Truex Jr., $9,200. He's starting in 13th. I think he's an okay tournament play. I'm not in love with Truex. I think I'd rather get the Tyler Reddick, and I would rather get the Kevin Harvick right below him. And Truex is going to be one of those spots where I don't think the ownership is going to be too high or anything, but he was pretty fast at the short flat tracks last year. I mean, over the course of his career, the past few seasons at least, this has been a very good track type for him. 2 top 5s and 4 top 10s at these last year, and he also had some of the most laps led as well in this 6-race sample size. So don't sleep on Truex, but really only in play for tournaments for me. Or if he's your last piece fit in cash, I guess go for it, but that'd be kind of an awkward range to be in. And then we have Kevin Harvick, $9,000. He's starting in 15th. I think the ownership's going to be pretty high here. I think everyone knows how good he is at Phoenix. He has like a top 10 streak since, 2013? It's been like a decade now. The guy's just in the top 10 each and every single time. So aside from catastrophic engine failure, mechanical issues, we're probably going to see Kevin Harvick in the top 10 once again. And if you're looking at his 6-race sample size last year at similar tracks, we're talking 4 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and a win at Richmond. So yeah, I like Kevin Harvick. He was also fast in practice, good in the short run, and even better in the long run. So sign me up for Kevin Harvick in cash or tournaments. Dropping down to the 8K range, we have a driver that I think is a bit underpriced here, Christopher Bell at $8,800. Not fast at all in the short run here, but what I care about the most is the long run, and those numbers kept decreasing, which is good news for me. 16th in the 10, but then 7th in the 5, and then 5th in the 20. And we all know Christopher Bell is really good at short flat tracks. This is his bread and butter. Had 2 top 5s with them last year, had a win, and also 5 top 10s. So at this price point, starting inside the top 5, I'm hoping the ownership isn't anything too crazy because I'll be playing Bell in tournaments. They have Alex Bowman, $8,600. Thought he was a nice tournament play last week at lower ownership. Ended up being around 20% owned, which kind of sucked. I wish I was a little bit lower, but ended up having a fantastic race. Finished 3rd. Hendrick absolutely dominated that race. But I will say the short flat tracks were not good for Alex Bowman last year. Actually, pretty much his worst effort. We're talking about an average finish outside the top 20. Running position not too far off. Only 1 top 10 finish. Obviously, not really any dominator points to look at. Green flag speed-wise, he wasn't fast either. Practice wasn't bad, though. Looks like he's going to be around the 12th to 15th place car, if I had to guess. There might be upside for more, but personally for me, I think there's more of a ceiling on Christopher Bell here than Alex Bowman. I think Bell's got a better chance to get up front and dominate and put up a big score than Alex Bowman does, really cracking the top 8, top 6. Daniel Suarez at $8,500. He's starting in 11th. I feel like this is right around where he's going to probably finish. If he was cheaper like he was last week in the 7K range, I feel like I'd have more interest, but it's just kind of hard to get here because we have Chase Briscoe starting in 24th, who I think's got a much better car than 24th. Also won this race last year. You have Bubba Wallace. So I'm not in love with Daniel Suarez. I mean, he was 11th in the 10 and 6th in the 15, so maybe he challenges for a top 10. And if you're looking at the short flats last year, did have 2 top 10 finishes, no top 5s, and not really someone you really think to have a threat to dominate these track types. So I'll be probably pretty low on Suarez. Not saying he's a complete fade, but I just think he's starting a bit high. Chase Briscoe, $8,400, the most recent winner. The spring race, most recent spring race, Phoenix winner. He's starting in 24th. Was pretty fast at these track types last year. Obviously pretty fast at Phoenix, finished in the top 5 in each race. And pretty good in practice, although we didn't get anything past a 10-lap run. Was 5th in the 1, 9th in the 5, 7th in the 10. Assuming he doesn't have any issues or is down a cylinder like he was in the 1 race, I think he should be a top 15 contender. And at this price point, it's not killing you. So I wouldn't say it's like it's kind of up there in the mid 8K range, so he's not like an absolute lock plug-in play. But I do think he's going to grade out pretty well for me. And then we have Bubba Wallace, $8,200. He's starting in 19th. Typically not my favorite driver to use at the short flats. I prefer him at the intermediates. And the numbers can back that up from last season. We're talking about a guy that was barely inside the top 20 for his average finish and only 1 top 10 to show for it. If you're looking at practice, Bubba Wallace, I don't believe he was super impressive. Yeah, it was kind of like middle of the road where he was 16th in the 1, 16th in the 15, but then showed better speed in the 5 and 10 lap, which was nice. Starting in 19th, he'll probably move up a few spots, but given the opportunity, I think I'd rather play Chase Briscoe starting 5 spots further back. Josh Berry, $8,000. Obviously wasn't great last week, but he had basically no time to practice, no time to run sims in the simulator. So we'll give him a pass. And I think he should be okay at short tracks. I mean, pretty much his better track type. And starting in 17th, practice wasn't that great, 23rd, 25th, 21st. But I think he's going to kind of hang around the top 20. But at this price point, kind of priced out for me, and I don't really think there's going to be a ton of room for improvement. I'd rather play Bubba, I'd rather play Briscoe, and I'd rather play Suarez pretty much. So I'm kind of getting priced out on Barry. Don't think I'll have much ownership at all. Brad Keselowski starting us off in the 7K range. He's starting in 4th. I wish he was starting a little bit further back. If he was like 7th on back, I think I'd have interest in Keselowski for tournaments. But starting in fourth, that's when you start to really push it, because I would say like a top 8, top 10 is a pretty good day for Keselowski. I don't think he's going to be in the top 5 by the end of the day. I don't think he's going to be someone that's going to get up front and dominate. So I think he can crack the top 10. If I had to guess, projections might have him around 11th, 12th place finish, which is pretty good for Keselowski. But starting in fourth, it's just a bit high for me. In practice would suggest he's kind of in that like 8th to 12th place range. So probably going to pass on Kes, but he'll probably be annoying and stay in P6 all day, and I wish I'll have him. Eric Jones, $7,600. He's starting in 10th. I don't really see a reason to want to play Jones here. Practice was not nearly as fast as where he qualified, and we're probably just going to see him fall back, to be honest. If you're looking at the short flats last year, Jones was basically a 20th place car for the most part. He could crack the top 15. He's got a good starting position to work with, but I'm just not in love with Jones here. Austin Dillon, $7,500. He's starting in 30th. RCR in general just really struggled in practice yesterday. Kyle Busch qualified much better than Austin Dillon. And I'm kind of concerned that a lot of people will go to Austin Dillon because of the place differential upside, but he might just be one of those drivers that's kind of stuck in the back all day, like running around 25th place, which sure, that's positive PD, but it's not going to do much for you. Like at that point, if Dillon's running around 25th, you'd rather have Keselowski losing 4 or 5 spots in like 8th or 9th. So I'm probably not going to be super high on Austin Dillon. I'll have to see what the projections and sims say, but I don't think he's going to project out as good as you may think on paper. Ryan Preece at $7,300. He's starting in 25th. He was terrible in practice, which Stewart Haas tends to be pretty good at these track types, but man, it was pretty rough. 32nd, 30th, and 32nd. Obviously, we don't really have any data to work with Ryan Preece because he didn't run a short flat track yet, especially since he wasn't in the Cup Series last season. So starting in 25th, I think he's kind of right on par with Austin Dillon, but at that point, I think I might just rather play Austin Dillon because of the extra 5 spots. Austin Cindric gets $7,100. He's starting in 20th. Looks like he qualified right around where he's running in practice, so I'm not seeing much room for improvement here. And really, this 7K range kind of sucks because I'm not in love with any of these guys for the most part. So I'm hoping these 6K guys look a little bit better for us because I'm not loving really any of these. But Austin Cindric wasn't that bad at the short flats last year. It was actually pretty much his best track type. He had 4 top 15 finishes, 5 top 20s. The average finish around 15th place, which is right on par with his running position. If Cindric gets $700, can run around 15, starting in 20th. That's not terrible. It won't kill you. So I probably will have some Cindric exposure just because this whole 7K range does not look that appealing to me. And Cindric honestly does look the best as of right now. Dropping down to the 6K range, Eric Almirola, $6,900. He's starting in 31st. So that's definitely going to pull some ownership away from guys like Cindric, Ryan Preece, and obviously Ty Gibbs and Chris Buescher right below him. And I have to assume he might be one of the higher owned plays on the slate starting this far back because we need some cheap plays, and by the looks of it, we don't have many that offer a ton of place differential upside. I mean, Eric Almirola, he's good at the short flat tracks. I know people have been talking about this week, and rightfully so. I mean, this is the best track type ever since he's been with Stewart Haas Racing, and the guy's just the top 10, top 15 contender at these tracks almost every single time. And practice was not that bad for him. I mean, he was 17th in the 10 and then top 10 across the board the rest of the way. Obviously, less drivers ran it, but I think he should be a top 15 contender. And if he's going to do that below 7K starting in the 30s, I will take that. And if you're playing cash games, he's probably going to be a plug and play. Ty Gibbs, $6,700. He's starting at 14th. Pretty much just too high for me. Didn't do that well in practice. 28th, 26th, 19th, 15th. Even if he finishes around like 15th to 13th, if Almirola can gain us 10 plus spots, I'd rather have Eric Almirola. Chris Buescher at $6,600. I'd rather play Buescher over Ty Gibbs. I think Buescher would be a nice pivot off of a guy like Eric Almirola, who should have more ownership because he was pretty good in practice. And last year at these short flats, Chris Buescher was pretty freaking good. I mean, 40.3 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 13.2, 2 top 10s and 3 top 15s. I think RFK should be pretty solid in this race. So Chris Buescher at this price point starting in the 20s looks pretty good to me. Justin Haley at $6,400 wasn't that impressive in practice, starting in 26. I feel like it's right around where he's going to run. I know he had a good finish last week, but let's be honest, he got lucky because of the caution at the end. AJ Allmendinger at $6,200. He's starting in 22nd. I would rather play Dinger over Haley personally. I prefer Allmendinger at these kind of tracks where there's more braking. Pretty good in the short run. Basically like a borderline top 10 car there. Fell off a bit, but if Dinger can hang around the top 20, I don't hate him at that price point. Noah Gragson, $6,000. He's starting in 32nd. It's just tough to trust these rookies. Like projection-wise, it's probably not going to look too bad in most systems because you'd expect them to probably be like a top 25 contender. Practice was kind of right on par where he's starting though, so my hopes are not too high for Gregson here. I think I would rather get to a guy like Allmendinger, to be honest, and Chris Buescher. But if you're just looking for a cheap play that'll probably gain a handful of spots, Gregson's okay. Dropping down to the 5K range, we have a very cheap Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at $5,800. And heading into the week, I was like, well, I'm probably absolutely not playing Stenhouse because of how bad he was at these track types last year. Like, he sucked so bad at the short flats. We're talking about an average finish of 27.3, and the running position was right there, and he had no top 20s. But then he comes out and is fast in practice, top 10 across the entire board, short run, medium run, long run, and he qualifies 23rd. So maybe they turn the tides this year where they're going to be better at the short flats. I still am a bit skeptical, but I think Stenhouse does have some top 20 upside here if the speed translates. So I'm not going to try to get too caught up into last year because keep in mind, it's not the same aero package, which you do have to keep in mind going through the entire data set here. I still think the guys that are good at short flats are going to be good at short flats, but you do have to keep in mind that new aero package, which you can't completely look at last year's numbers to make examples off of, which is why I think the practice numbers mean more than anything here, really. Then we have Harrison Burton at $5,700. Was not that bad in practice. Top 15 across the board here, nothing lower than 15th, and that was in the 10 lap. Starting all the way back in 27th, I don't think he's a bad play. I think Stenhouse might have more GPP appeal, but Burton, if you're looking for a PD guy, I don't think he's the worst play back there. And we know Penske tends to perform pretty well here, and while he's not officially Penske, he's basically the fourth Penske car. Corey LaJoie, $5,600. He's starting at 28th. This is the lowest I've seen him start, I think, all season long. He just seems to start around 15th to 20th, and he sticks around there the entire race. Practice a little bit better than where he's starting. I'd probably prefer Burton, to be honest, but I wouldn't hate it if you played LaJoie. McDowell's starting way too far up for me. Don't think I'll really get to any. I don't see how projections will plug him in any lineup personally. And then we have Zane Smith in the 38th this week for Todd Gillen. Gillen will be in the 15 for Rick Ware Racing, bumping out, I believe, who was it last week? JJ Haley. So if you're wondering where Zane's car is this week, that's who he took over for. But he's at $5,200, starting all the way back in 34th, which does have some appeal. And in practice, we didn't get too much data here. Nothing besides a 5-lap and 1-lap run, but 21st and 23rd. I don't think that's terrible, obviously, especially for where he's starting. And Zane Smith's a good enough driver where if Todd Gillen was starting 34th at $5,200, I think people would be playing some. I'm not saying he'd be chalk or anything, but I think you'd have a little bit of ownership, especially for a cheap driver. So Zane Smith back here, I actually don't hate that. We did have a one-race sample size from him last year at a short flat track, and he finished 17th. So I don't hate Zane here. I think he is playable. I think I'd rather play him over Ty Dillon. Speaking of Ty Dillon, $5,000, starting in 35th. And the Spire car, I just don't trust that car. It's going to be slow. It'll probably break down at some point. So I know he's starting in the very back, and Ty Dillon's actually pretty good at Phoenix. He has like a top 15 or top 20 streak here for a few races. But that wasn't better equipment, downgraded this year. I can't see that happening again. So if I had to pick between the two, I would definitely take Zane. Then the 4K range, Todd Gillen, downgraded equipment this week, starting in 29th. Probably going to run around there, if not worse. I'll pass on Gillen. Cody Ware, no thank you. I know he's starting dead last, but again, no thanks. Then BJ McLeod, I can't play him. That car is so slow. But with that being said, guys, that's all I got for you this week. I hope you did enjoy, and if you did, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. If you want the extra content, links down below in the description or the pinned comment for that. Check out the sponsors. Use promo code CPEN and tell them I sent you. But I think that's it. I'll see you guys on the live on Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And I wish you all the best of luck.